Well, today, I'd hope to persuade you to consider the power of ignorance. I know you've all heard of the phrase, knowledge is power. Well, from my perspective, there can be an equal and sometimes even greater power in ignorance. Well, what does it mean to be ignorant? Well, some people consider it an insult for someone who's uninformed or unaware. But I choose to look at ignorance a different way. I believe that ignorance is more than just being naive. It can mean to reject or ignore preconceived notions. Choosing to disregard information or fact, to be willfully ignorant, can lead to amazing accomplishments and innovations. There are countless reasons why humanity's greatest achievements shouldn't have been possible. But the great leaders of our history chose to look past all the reasons why not, and they went anyway. The power of ignorance helped these great leaders accomplish things like transatlantic flight, walking on the moon, and climbing Mount Everest. Amelia Earhart was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. At a time when aviation was still relatively new, she was the cutting edge. Early on, people around her told her all the reasons that it would be difficult, but Amelia chose to ignore them and to follow her dream. Breaking down barriers in technology, with finance, and even gender, she went anyway. While crossing the Atlantic, strong winds, icy conditions, and mechanical problems plagued her flight. But in spite of it all, she made it. And one of my favorite quotes of all times, Amelia said, "Never interrupt someone doing something you said couldn't be done." In the early 1960s, we were in the middle of the Cold War, and Russia, our greatest enemy, was winning the race to space. It wasn't just a matter of pride, but of national security that we explore this new frontier. When John F. Kennedy said that we put a man on the moon and return him home safely, he didn't know how he would do it. And in his famous speech at Rice University, he said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." Well, on July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And 45 years ago today, July 24th, Armstrong and the rest of his crew splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean. They did it. Our nation chose to ignore all the reasons why not, and they went for the moon. Today we enjoy thousands of innovations thanks to these great leaders. But the willful ignorance of these great men and women alone did not lead to their success. These innovators also shared three very important traits. They had vision, they had humility, and they had grit. To climb Mount Everest is one of the most challenging physical activities in the world. Sir Edmund Hillary and his Sherpa guide, Tenzing Norgay, were the first to do it. Sir Edmund took on Mount Everest with vision, humility, and grit. When Hillary's Everest bid began with a very clear picture of the end goal. Mount Everest had long been considered unclimbable by many. When he set out, he didn't focus on all the challenges between him and the summit. He didn't think about all those who'd failed before him, who had lost their lives. Sir Edmund Hillary pictured himself holding the flag of his country on the highest point in the world. His vision led to his success. He didn't let the facts or the odds discourage him. But Sir Edmund Hillary did not climb Mount Everest alone. He had over 400 climbers and Sherpa in his expedition. He relied heavily on this strong team for success, and he never once took personal credit. When he returned from Mount Everest, he told everyone that it was his Sherpa guide, Tenzing Norgay, who was the first to set foot on the summit. But 25 years later, Norgay set the record straight. On his deathbed, he wrote that it was Sir Edmund who had in fact been first. When asked to clarify the story, Sir Edmund said, "Believe me, to us, to mountaineers, who's first is not important. We were a team." For 7 weeks, that team fought a battle to take on Mount Everest. Gale force winds, crevasses, lack of oxygen, ice walls, and all kinds of other challenges stood in their way. But Hillary and Norgay never gave up. Despite all the setbacks and missteps, they pushed through. They had passion, they had determination, they had perseverance, they had grit. I personally draw a lot of inspiration from these great leaders. I like to think that I approach life with a willful ignorance that served me well. When I was 7 years old, my brother told me that I would never be a pro baseball player. I gotta admit, I was devastated, and I was just determined to prove him wrong. Well, the bad news is I never made it in baseball. But the good news is I never gave up the drive to do things that others thought were impossible. Today, I'm really lucky. I work for a great company called The Nerdery, based out of Minneapolis. When I joined 10 years ago as a programmer, a lot of my friends thought I was crazy. I left a great job at a growing .com for a significant pay cut. But I left to join 3 programmers who had a vision for greatness, and I was all in. In the early days, I remember we were only about 20 people, and I told one of my good friends that in a year we'd be 50 people. He told me that I was nuts, that there was no way that it'd be impossible. And frankly, that pissed me off. I didn't know how we'd do it, and I didn't know how hard it would be or all the challenges that we'd run into, but I was determined to prove him wrong. And I was lucky to work for some great leaders who empowered me to make a difference. I worked my butt off, and we grew our team. Today, I am humbled to work with over 500 nerds and serve them as our president. We share strong values and a clear vision for the future. That vision is to be the best place in the world for nerds to work. We're working on it. We dream of one day being a billion-dollar company with thousands of employees. We're going to change the way the world looks at nerds. But a lot of people out there, they say it's going to be difficult, that it may be even impossible. They say that the odds are against us. Never tell me the odds. But that said, I know I can't do it alone. If there's one thing I've learned over the last 10 years is that I am not the smartest guy in the room. I don't have what it takes to build a nerdery that we aspire to be. I don't have the brains, I don't have the ingenuity, I don't have the guts to do it all by myself. But what I do have is an army of nerds. We have an audacious goal, but with willful ignorance, I like my team and I like my chances. Consider the bumblebee. There's an old story that I think is fitting for the power of ignorance. It was once said that according to the laws of aerodynamics, a bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly. The mass of its body and the size of its wings should make it impossible. Well, the good news is, nobody told the bumblebee. I want to challenge you all to embrace your ignorance. Find an audacious goal for yourself and forget about all the reasons why not. Work hard. Surround yourself with smart people. Follow the lead of EARHART, Armstrong, Hillary, and of course, the bumblebee. Thank you.